welcome to the Surviving Trauma Stories of Hope podcast. I'm excited to welcome back to the podcast Marina Yanay-Triner. Marina is a transformational and compassionate somatic coach with 10 years of experience in the field. In this episode today, we discuss triggers, and Marina helps us to understand what triggers are, how to get to the uncomfortable place of processing triggers, how to take back our power and work through triggers as they happen, and we find out more about her upcoming course on how to deal with triggers. It is always a pleasure to have Marina on the podcast and to have her share her wisdom with us. She is incredibly knowledgeable and an expert in the field of trauma recovery and somatic healing. And as always, thank you to my listeners for joining me on this journey. Comment on my posts on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and let me know what you think of this episode. Did it help you? Was it informative? Let us know. Also be on the lookout for my upcoming book, Ray of Light, The Healing Path to Step Out of Trauma into Joy and Inner Peace. The expected publication date is May 2022, so stay tuned. And as always, keep listening. Hi, Marina. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Marlene. I'm so excited to chat with you again.
You look beautiful. It's so wonderful to see you.
You look beautiful. I love connecting with you and your energy. It's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Today, we're going to talk about triggers.
Yay, triggers. Everyone's like, here we go. You know what? Last night I had a masterclass of 2.5 hours entirely on triggers. And I got all these messages of people being like, that was really fun. That was really light. I feel really energized. And I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm accomplishing my goal on this planet, which is to make trauma fun.
I love that. And I think that the healing process shouldn't be this belaboring process that pulls you down. And so,
Totally.
Yeah, I like this idea of making the trauma healing journey fun.
Yeah, fun and light, and so you don't feel like you're like about to faint.
It's true. I wanted to start us off by understanding, firstly, exactly what a trigger is. So if you've experienced trauma, what is a trigger in relation to that trauma?
First and foremost, I like to say, notice your body, because that's what I do. And I think it's most apparent in our bodies, where it's a very charged sensation. We just feel very charged emotionally with our sensations. And we're also in this nervous system state that is not regulated. So maybe we feel shut down and frozen, or we feel really anxious. We have like racing thoughts. And basically, it's responding to the present through the lens of the. It's as if we traveled back to trauma, whether it's literally when we were babies, which I'm sure we'll talk about the categories of trauma. We travel all the way back to the past, and we're responding to what's happening right now through that. And maybe the next day we're like, what was that? What was that reaction? It's not even a response. It's not like, oh, I know what to do, and here's what I'm going to do. It's like we out of control, and we're swept a bit away by this wave of emotion, tsunami, not even wave, of emotion and sensation, and we just act. We react.
So the last time you were here, we spoke about somatic healing, and the somatic healing was all about this connection between the mind and the body, right? This mind-body connection. And so when we dive deeper into that connection, how does that sort of relate to triggers?
A lot of people like to focus on the mind, right? And our thoughts, like change your thoughts, work on your mind, think positive. And this is exactly where it gets the most interesting, because I always tell people, and everyone gets it, everyone laughs, like if you're triggered, if someone says something to you and you feel so charged, you want to literally punch them. And I tell you, love this person, think positive. Or you feel stuck, and you're laughing because it's so relatable, right? Or like you feel so stuck. And I'm like, oh, just think positive. It's going to be fine. And you're like, I can't. That is why we go into the body, because trauma gets stored in your body. So you might not even know the story. You might not even know this present trigger and the old kind of origin of it, because so much of it can even be when you were a baby. And sometimes, Peter Levine, who doesn't really believe in memory very much, like he said, we can jumble things up in our minds, and it gets tricky for us survivors who like want to go to court and things like that. So let's decide, because it's so complicated, and I worked in that field, and I always believe survivors. But this relates more to trusting the memory in your healing process, right? So you might have these flashes when you go into the body and he was giving all these examples in the book of people that he worked with that would see like someone touching them, or different kind of body memories. And that's called implicit memory. We have our explicit memory, which is in our mind, which, I ask you, what's your name? You know what it is, or what happened yesterday, what did you do? This is implicit memory. So a lot of times when I work with clients, they'll say, I'm seeing this color, I'm seeing this vision. That's coming from the body. And in the healing process, we absolutely trust it. We don't say, is the truth? We might have that voice like, what's happening? Is this true? Oh my gosh, and I'm getting chills. It's crazy. But we just like trust it, and we work through it. And there's so much words after we work through those memories. And then when we approach the trigger again, right? Because triggers are always repeating. For example, I used to have a really, really intense abandonment rejection trigger. So it would just repeat in all kinds of ways. It feels so much less charged. We feel like, okay, I can deal with this. Like, I'm in control here. I know what to do. And that's the best feeling.
Okay. So I'm thinking, I'm trying to get an example that makes sense to me. So let's say I'm in the car and I'm driving. My boyfriend broke up with me 5 years ago and he cheated on me. And so now I see this car and immediately my mood starts to change. I start to think, was that his car? Who was that in the car with him? Was that girlfriend? Oh, were they still together? And I'm starting to get very upset about all of this. Is that a trigger?
Yes. Exactly. I love this example. I love it because it really, I like, as you're talking, I can feel my body, like I'm with you, exactly. And it's like, another, like if I was sitting in the car, like, oh, that's a cool car, like it would do nothing. I remember I was in nonviolent communication course, and someone was like talking about their mother so intensely, like, she said this, and then this. Then the teacher asked the class, is anyone else hating? And none of us, raised our hand, like, we don't care. And the person was stunned, like, what? No, she's your mother, and she triggers you because you have so much history with her, right? And she triggers you. So yeah, that's a perfect example. And a little bit what's going on in your story. Did you have a question?
Is that so? A trigger can be a person can trigger you, or a situation.
Mm-hmm. Or even a pain in your body. If you feel pain in your body, like I work with people even someone who had COVID, and that was super triggering because that triggered for them, past pain or past things in their body. Yeah, it can be a sensation. It can be something you see, a sound that reminds us, a taste, anything really. A smell, yeah. So I remember, oh my gosh, Gio cologne. I love the smell of it, but that was his cologne that he would always wear. It would drive me insane. I remember just shut down just from smelling a person that walked by me, So if we analyze your story, example, not your personal story, but the example, which is brilliant. So we have our nervous system state is changing, right? We go into either we shut down, so we feel numb, we don't feel anything in our body, we feel shut down. Maybe we feel really hopeless. Our posture could change. We kind of feel like, I want to hide. I just want to go. I don't want anyone to want to hide. So that is the dorsal vagal state of our nervous system, which is the freeze. That's an option. Or we could go into anxiety, racing thoughts, being really fearful, like, oh my God, I'm in danger. I need to get away. And the interesting thing is we are in danger. So my clients will say, but I'm not in danger. Like nothing happened. And I'm like, yes, you are. It doesn't matter because your body perceives it. That's the point. And so that's a nervous system state. When you experience trauma and you survived it, like your brain is like, I'm good. Like I survived, everything's fine. But your body doesn't know that for different reasons. You don't know that. You feel like you didn't survive it. So I can tell you, you're safe, right? But your body and your emotions are like, oh my God, I'm not safe. Like it's so probably this person that is experiencing described has not digested their emotions from that situation. They have not processed emotionally everything that happened. So it's just very charged still for them. And the other piece is if we have a lot of ongoing trauma that we process, or just one big trauma that we haven't processed. But I really like to share that this can even be when you're a baby and your parents are busy, which I think is most of us, or they're just like tired and you're crying and they don't come to soothe you. It happens a lot. That is a trauma. Right.
And I think they talk about the big T's and the small T's.
Exactly. Which I don't like that name because to me it's all big T.
I also feel like it's all big T's, but I think the way that people perceive trauma is they feel better about themselves and their circumstances, trauma, if they don't associate it with the big T. And so I suppose, if they can associate it with a smaller T, then it's not such a big deal. That's just what I think.
I think so too. Like it's actually in my journey the trickiest to process. It's so like insidious and just like almost hidden, and so it's like it's kind of connected to the original story, so it doesn't make sense. Like, why are we having these triggers? Nothing really huge happened, right? So it's so tricky. And my survivor brain is always like, okay, I got triggered today, so now analyze and understand what was the original thing that happened to me that led to this. And often we can't. There's nothing because it happened when we were babies. And it just really makes me see my parents as very human, because my parents were 20 when I was born, and they had no idea what they were doing. They had no idea how to soothe me emotionally. They had no idea how to soothe their own emotions. Why would they know how to soothe my emotions? When I would be sad, my mom was so terrified. Like she actually knows it. She told me, like, when you were sad, I just wanted it to go away because it's like the worst thing in the world. And it comes from good intention, but that resulted in me having zero clue how to deal with sadness. So if sadness comes up, totally just numbing it out. That's what I would do for years. So to come back to your example, if we don't have those emotional processing tools, we don't process the emotions, we kind of numb them out, or we go into anxiety as like a form of defense, or we go into procrastination and all these interesting behaviors to avoid the emotion. In this cycle, and it just really, really strong, because we're really traumatized. Our nervous system is very, very often in fight or flight or freeze. So we're really dysregulated, not just in that story. Maybe we come into that example already dysregulated. So it's called Tolerance by Dr. Dan Siegel, which is this window where things happen to you and you can handle it. Ups and downs of life, and you're just like, okay, this is upsetting, but I can handle it. But maybe our window of tolerance is pretty small, so we can't tolerate things because trauma is kind of it minimizes this window for you to process it. So we're already coming into the situation with not a lot of capacity to deal with it. Because now, the other day I was in and I saw this girl, I think, that knew both me and the guy that I dated when I was a teen. And I was like, oh my God. And I walked the other way. And my partner was like shopping. And then he was like, are you okay? What happened? Because he knows me really well. And I was like, it's fine. Let's go. Keep going. We're going. And he's like, what happened? And I was like, I saw someone that I don't want to see. Right. And what's interesting is in the past, I used to be shut down for a week after that. Like, at least, And now it's just like, I told them and I was over it because I've worked so much on my nervous system. So my window of tolerance, even though, of course, it affected me in the moment, is pretty big so I can handle these things that happen.
I like this concept of the window of tolerance because that's really where you find your strengths, isn't it?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the first thing you said, which was brilliant about the window of tolerance. Those emotions are coming with so much fear. Like if sadness, something's going to happen. My mom is going to reject me. So tolerating sadness, like sitting and feeling sad and not running to my mind, to all these different things so I can avoid it, or tolerating feeling freeze or feeling numb in my body or feeling anxiety. It took a long time to tolerate it. And that is actually what expanded my window. So thank you for saying that because it's a pretty cool concept.
I hear this, but when I think about it, I think that for most people, when they are deflecting and they procrastinating, when they are being triggered and they feeling that emotion, and in order not to feel the emotion, they do something else, they overthink, they procrastinate or so forth. Is that not a subconscious response? They feel the emotion, fear of rejection, for example. If you talk about abandonment, like or neglect, what you were talking about earlier with your parents, that fear sets in and you automatically react and not respond from that place of fear.
Absolutely. The second option. So, we have a lot of shame around these behaviors. And we think something's wrong with me. Why am I a procrastinator? Or why do I do X, Y, Z, overthink so much? Or why do I have social anxiety? Like all of these little behaviors. And it's subconscious. We don't actually say like, oh, I feel an emotion in my body, so I'm going to avoid it. Now it's interesting these days, as I'm more aware, I totally catch that. I'm like, oh, I get what I'm doing here. Connected to my body. But in the past, when I wasn't connected, I would just do these numbing coping mechanisms. And essentially, they were adaptive. Like they helped me a lot because I wasn't ready to deal with all of these emotions and sensations and all of this trauma. My body was like, not today, not now. You don't have the tools. You don't have the support. You don't know what you're doing. So once I started to go into the body and really connect, of course, it's a very long-term process, and notice my emotions and actually get support from both a coach and a therapist that would sit with me and help me come back to sadness, and then also help me when my brain just was over. I would dissociate. Somatic practitioners notice this. They notice your eyes glazing over and all of it they can see. And so my therapist would be like, you're gone. Okay, let's come back. Sadness, let's come back. Let's ground and regulate first so that you feel safe, because you don't want to just force yourself to sit there and feel sad for hours. If you feel extremely unsafe, that's not the idea. You actually want to feel very grounded to teach your body, hey, you're not in trauma anymore. This sadness is not coupled with fear anymore. It's done. Like you're safe now and you can actually just feel sad and you're fine, you're safe. So that was kind of the process. And you're so right. It's totally subconscious. And so I just want everyone who's listening who has these behaviors to know that it's not your fault and there's nothing wrong with you. It's completely subconscious and you're not doing it on purpose at all. So to come back to your question, which now escaped my mind, what was your about triggers? What
Oh,
was
I wanted
yours?
to know whether, when you have these memories and you triggered, and I was thinking about my own experience, because in the beginning, I used to my experiences as opposed to having a memory of the experience. And as it fades over time, and it starts as one thing, and the more you show your body you are safe, it's okay to not feel this anxiety. You start to move to a place of memory, I guess, rather than reliving the actual event.
Yes, you
So yeah.
described it really well. Yeah, you described it really well, actually. I feel like you put better words than I was going to about the difference between it's like these body memories, right? I remember having them. It's almost like it's a body memory. It really is. It's like this is happening right now, moment. It's not the past. And so it's almost like in that experience, it is happening to you right now. Like you said, it's not the past, and it's like your present experience. And so you are reliving it. And then when you work with trauma, it becomes a memory. So that's, it's like, oh, this is in the past. It's not happening now. It's not that you forget it, obviously, but it's like this happened in the past. It's not my experience anymore. It doesn't dictate my experience. And again, our brain knows that it's in the past, right? Our brain's like, of course it's in the past. It's not happening now because it's a body memory.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember them. And they are, they are, I think, the worst kind of triggers, right? Because you have a physical reaction to the trigger, to the outside source that affects you.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that the worst part of it is that we feel like a victim in that moment. And that's like the worst part because we're out of control. And it really brings us to what it's like to go through that trauma because we were out of control then. And it's like our like that again. And so the beautiful thing is when you actually work through the trauma, you don't feel out of control anymore. It's not that you don't get triggered. Maybe you feel something, but you feel like you have the power to work through it.
So when you have clients that have made this decision, I don't like the way that I feel. I don't like that I am triggered and I want to seek help. So how do you get them to actually go to that place, that uncomfortable place?
Yeah, so it's uncomfortable for sure for all of us. It's uncomfortable work, and that's why people avoid it, right? So I really kind of developed my own process from learning all these different methodologies and reading all these books and taking all these courses. And basically, we definitely start with regulation. We don't start with, okay, feel right away, feel all your feelings. We start with regulating the nervous system. So I notice my clients, I just notice what state they're in. Are they grounded? Are they present? What's happening for them? Some people come to me and they're very, very anxious, and you can just tell they're just like talking, so fast. And there's this urgency, and they just want to tell me everything, right? And I always pause them and I'm like, okay, what is happening right now is that you're in a trauma response, the way that you're showing up with me. And I don't do it to shame them, of course. I just kind of give them language which is so helpful because they're like, oh yeah, and my thoughts are racing and I'm talking so fast and I feel like this is my only chance to tell you everything and we need to fix it and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, I want to hear everything that you're saying. It's so important. First, can we just ground so that you can say it in from a different space? So the priority is regulation, and you would be amazed, like after we do the regulation work, how different, even in the same session, how different they are. They're like a different person. They're like,
Wow.
oh, their energy, they're like, oh yes, so let me tell you what happened. And I'm like, are you noticing what's happening to you because this is really cool. And it's beautiful.
Regulation process, it happens actually quite fast. Regulating your body.
It can. I think, again, it depends on the person. So, for example, it depends kind of how much trauma they have and how much work they've done. That's basically. For me, when I came to my therapist and she would be like, and I would be telling her like, this thing happened and it was horrible and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, what do you feel in your body? So we would go into my body. Within 10 minutes, I was asleep. I would be like yawning. And she's like, where are you? Are you here? And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I'm out. Peace out. So that was a lack of capacity that I had to be in my body. I've never been in my body before I came to her. I was always in my head. And as soon as I would go into my body, everything surfaced, all of the trauma. So I would shut down because the states of the nervous system, the 3 states, they are a hierarchy. So that means you're regulated, you're present, everything's good. Then you go into anxiety. Or you can go immediately into shutdown. But in most cases, pass through anxiety. We might not even notice it because it's so fast, but we go into anxiety. Our nervous system goes into fight or flight, right? Which is, when you think of trauma, I want to fight so I can survive, or I want to run away. Then I feel like I don't have the resources to do this. Like I'm a victim, right? I don't have the resources. Someone is trapping me or whatever is. So when I don't have the resources, I will numb my body so I don't feel the pain of whatever they're going to do to me. So it's all very, very adaptive. So I will freeze. I will go into shutdown. So when we feel under-resourced in whatever way, we usually will freeze. And that's why I'm very careful, depending on who I'm working with. If we go into the body and immediately I see that they're not present anymore, it's going to go very slow. We are not going to just go in there and be like, okay, so what are you sensing, And I also, I've had clients who will resist with all their might. Like, I'll be like, so what do you sense in your chest? Oh, by the way, I wanted to tell you. Like, and I'm like,
and they back in their mind.
Or like, I sense that I'm sitting, or just like, notice how they're resisting me. And I have pushed before. And I would be like, okay, I need to listen to their body because I'm not leading anything here. It's their body. So if all this resistance comes, I know, okay, we are slowing way, way down. We're not going to go this fast. But the cool thing is, if you try to feel your body, just completely struggling, all the defenses are coming up, you go into your head, like all this, work one-on-one. Don't take a course, don't do a group, like work one-on-one, because the person can really see what's happening and they can guide you in a really powerful way. And also you regulate with people. So when I coach, I have the calmest presence on that because the person regulates to me. So they already feel safe with me, first of all my clients, I always tell them on the initial call, like, actually check your body. Do you feel safe with me? And it's not like I don't get offended. Like, if they don't, I'm like, okay, I'm the coach for you, because you should feel super, super safe with your coach. And so all your body can relax. And I also get them to physically take a million pillows and blankets and all this stuff to really allow their body to like surrender and release. So back to kind of the methodology, the first step is this regulation. Once I see a person's regulated, then accessing the emotions is much easier. It doesn't feel as threatening. So we go into that and, we can just dip into it initially. Like, we don't stay with it forever. We stay with it as long as they're able. And then slowly it expands and we can stay with it longer and longer.
You know what was so interesting about said now, it made me think of one of the self-love principles. And it is that change starts with and you're describing exactly that when you actually bring these emotions up, in your clients when they are trying to resist you, that's where the work is needed, and that start to happen.
Yeah, but it's like, I guess we hear that resistance and what that means, and we have all these like defense mechanisms, right? And something that I've been playing with and I actually want to really learn a lot more about is internal family, which is talking about different parts. So one part is this resistance and kind of what we do. And I learned, from an expert, but I feel like I need a whole course, and it's probably going to happen because I never stop learning. As you know, I'm always doing another thing. So I will, but I'm already kind of starting to play with it because I also learned it in my coaching certification. Basically, looking at the part and just saying, "Oh, I'm noticing this. A part of you is coming out right now. What is that?" We can name it. So, no. For example, for me, I have the part of the asshole, like when I just become really mean to myself and other people. So it can also be funny and silly, like, okay, resist, name them. Maybe, and how old is this part? Maybe it's like 5 years old. It's like, I don't want to do this. Why? Or maybe it's a really scared part. And we can kind of almost like look at it. We can imagine it coming out of our body, look at it, talk to it, and we say, what do you need right now? What does this part need to kind of relax? Is this part willing to wait outside the room just for right now? Maybe it's not. And it's really cool when you connect to your body, you can actually feel that. You can feel that part being like, nope, today I'm fully in my resistance, right? And I'm not willing to back down. And then we really gain this trust. This is where like real trust develops, in my opinion, with our bodies. When we say, okay, so not today. We don't push through it. We're not like, but it has to be today. The day, And so it's really beautiful when we really trust just from our body.
I think we can all learn to trust our bodies more. Can processing triggers, without processing emotionally, right, in the body, be solved?
So here's something really interesting. When I started going into the body, I would just focus on sensations. And it's really interesting because I don't know if it's because there are so many men in this field, the founders of somatic work are a lot of men, or because just humans in general really feel, because we do, let's be honest. Like
we do.
Like our whole society is built against emotion. Like in the workplace, why can't we express sadness? We can't express anything, and it's so crazy to me. And everything has to be like put together. So
you need to fit with the culture.
Yeah. And so even like experiencing, I feel, and maybe that's just my bias, but I really experienced it as very based on your sensations, and which was amazing. And that's kind of how I came into it. Processing your sensations and having the ability to just sense things, but disconnected from emotion. And interestingly, I mean, I did that for many years, but without that label, eventually that came, oh, this is disgust. Oh, this is fear. This is excitement. This is sexual excitement. All of the core emotions, without those labels, something just didn't click for me. It didn't process all the way through. And I see that in my clients as well. Like, we need to fully connect to, this is sadness. It's happening in my body. How can I stay with it? And I feel like I kind of even used sensing, just like, oh, my chest is tight, or there's tension, or there's heaviness, as a way to even avoid the emotion. So, I think emotions are so to work through around trauma and around life.
I agree. And also, I think that what I've learned today is that it's important to have the vocabulary to identify, first of all, what it is that you feel, because I think sometimes when you are triggered, you just go into what you was talking about, that shutdown mode, and you never really understand what exactly the emotion was that's associated with that trigger. So that first thing. The second thing I think is what is that we have to learn to feel the emotion rather than to avoid it. And that's
Or think
important.
about it.
Or
The
think
other
about
piece,
them.
yeah, I can be like, that was a very upsetting experience. I think I'm very upset, but I don't
Yes.
actually feel anything.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, I mean, I've come across people like that in my life. And when you see it, it's the strangest thing because they don't feel their emotions. They speak their emotions. And when they recall an event that was like an upsetting event or, a childhood trauma, they will speak it in a very clinical way, right? They will still say it was a horrible experience, but it's a very clinical way of talking about the emotion and feeling the emotion and feeling like, I really felt rejected or I really bad at that time. But it's speaking it. And too many people are living in their head, Marina. I want to clone you. And I want all the people that are triggered, that are not processing their trauma, I want to give them a Marina
Oh, I love
to
that.
help them.
Yeah, we're all, so many of us. And you just described me. I mean, I think it shifted a lot, but I used to be like, yeah, so this is what happened, XYZ, like describe the events. And it's like, I feel nothing in my body. It's completely numbed out. And it was a very almost kind of, it was very re traumatizing very often when I would talk about what happened because I would shut down to protect myself from feeling that I feel like it's happening now as I talk about it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Those
ready to be
doors that
cloned.
yeah.
I guess one thing I would add is I think we started by talking about how it's uncomfortable and it's hard, or how trauma can be fun. And this is something I tell all my clients when they're like terrified. They're like, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm also like terrified. I tell them, your body's going to lead you. Healing trauma can be fun in the sense of there's no pushing. We don't push. We don't force. We don't go about it in that way because people are so used to that. Our culture is all around that. Like, let's just do this, and that's not the right approach, in my opinion, at all. It's really about gentleness and actually listening to your body. And it's such a wonderful experience when you do it like that. Like, it's just like, oh, wow, I can do that. And I can do life like that. Like, you start to realize, like, actually, I can live like this. I don't need to like push myself all the time, which in my opinion is a trauma response when we're constantly in this, like, I'm going to push myself. So it's really wonderful.
So tell us about your online course.
Yes, so I have an online course and it's really great because it's completely self-paced. So you just enroll and you take it, and it really details this whole process, and it has this whole diagram in the very beginning that actually shows you like step by step, because our trauma brain really needs to know, okay, where am I going? What's the roadmap? So I actually made a roadmap with arrows and the whole bit. It's very cool.
Wow. Oh,
And
really?
yeah, I'm gonna show you after we end. I'll show you. It's pretty cool. If I can, I don't know if I can share my screen, but if I can, I'm gonna show you. And it's a whole roadmap, and then the course breaks it down. So we really go through regulating the nervous system. First, like, what is trauma? What are triggers? What is the window of tolerance? What are the nervous system states? Polyvagal theory, like all this cool stuff to actually understand it. And then we go through the actual process. So we go through nervous system regulation, and there's tons of practices that I share with you that you can do and experiment with. And then we go through feeling our emotions. And then we go through the mental processing, because that should come last. And then we go through the behavioral processing. So it's like a whole step-by-step working through triggers online course.
Stunning. So where do we sign up? On your website?
So you'll share the link, right? If I send it to you, you'll be able to share it.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
That wraps up this podcast episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy my podcast, please take a minute to give me a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast directory so you don't miss an episode. Please consider following My Centered Life on Facebook and Instagram for daily inspiration. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. You can catch me again in the next episode. Same time, same place. Sending you lots of love and light. Bye.